Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, shall we? The first story is called Corporate is Always Right. Before I can explain exactly what I did, I have to explain the system that was being used. I was a stocker at an office supply store, and every morning we received a computer-generated list of items that needed to be taken out of storage and put on the shelves. This list was generated by scanning the number of a particular item that should be on a shelf and the amount of that item that we have in stock versus the amount in storage. So if 10 should fit on the shelf and our system says we have 15 in stock with 10 in storage, the list would print saying I need to put 5 out. There are two very important things to note with the system. The first is that the only way the system had of grading our completion was by detecting if an item was deleted from the store inventory. The second is that each store was graded on how closely they followed the list, by percentage. If the list said 50 items needed to go out and we managed to get 40 out, we got 80%. Corporate expected 90% compliance daily, so I'd hear from my manager if we didn't hit that. Now comes the fun part. To start, in a twist that was 100% unrelated to this issue, I had just put in my 2 weeks notice, so I had nothing to lose. Immediately after that, about a month before back to school season began, corporate screwed up and registered that all of our back to school displays were already out. We hadn't even received these displays or any information about them. Because it was so early, there was no way they could be out. Suddenly, the system thought we had thousands of extra displays for school supplies like pencils and binders. We had already received all of that product and it was sitting in storage, so now that the system issue said we had displays, the fill list said they needed to be filled. I explained to my store manager what happened, and she said there's absolutely no way corporate would make that mistake. I must be doing something wrong. I called local stores and spoke with the store managers. All agreed with me and said their list compliance percentages are plummeting. I told my store manager. She repeated the same line. I printed off a list of the extremely low compliance percentages in our district and showed it to my manager. She said they must be doing something wrong too. Finally, I'd had enough of her whining. So for my last 10 or so days there, whenever this list printed saying we needed to fill several hundred items from storage, I just deleted those items from storage. On my second to last day, my store manager gave me a hearty congratulations on solving the issue and told me how much better we are doing than all the other stores. By the time the displays came out for real, I was gone. I was told by my former coworker that the store was absolute chaos because a few thousand items just didn't exist in our system and they had to completely go through the entire store's inventory to get it all fixed. Several years later, I still find it hilarious how proud my manager was that I had solved the issue. The next story is called Use It or Lose It. This happened roughly 5 years ago. I worked for a grocery store that had gone over several different buyouts. The original company was extremely generous with its paid time off. Because of how many weeks some employees had, a lot of the older employees have made comfortable careers out of working at a grocery store when you could have up to 3 months of paid time off. At least one person I knew had this much, but it was very common for people to have 8 to 10 weeks off a year. I myself had 6 weeks PTO after 6 years with the company. Each employee received accrued vacation time, 40 hours of paid holiday and 40 hours of vacation a year, all packaged together as my time. Sometime in the summer, we were informed that our location was being sold because the parent company was merging with another competitor, and due to a monopoly in the area, the building had to be sold before the merger. The entire transition was hectic. Because the store I worked at was designated the flagship of the expansion, we got brand new cooler cases, displays, paint, the works. On top of that, we were taking full inventories of every product in the store and later ordering heavily from the old company's warehouse to create a stockpile that should last us a few days, all while training in how the new company operates. In the midst of all this, there was a revolving door of different managers, HR reps, trainers, trainees and such, oftentimes with differing or contradictory things to tell us. By the time we were alerted to what would become of our PTO, it was 2 months until the merger was complete. Any employee staying on with the new company negotiated their PTO and wages during interviews with them. But we were unsure of what the old company was going to do in regards to what we had already accrued with them. The head of HR sent out a memo that finally ended all guesswork. Every employee would have 1 week rollover with the new company that can be used during the remainder of the year, and the old company would pay out 1 week. Anything unused would be lost. We recommend all employees adjust their time of requests to reflect this. Obviously, people started to worry. We were told we had to use it or lose it, so we used it. People clamored to take time off or just call out sick or leave early. The day after the announcement, I had 4 callouts in my department out of 8 scheduled. Because our PTO was packaged, it was all taken out of the same time bank, so there was no difference between personal days, vacations or calling out sick. It took the old company almost 2 weeks to change its stance and to renegotiate the terms, upping the rollover to 2 weeks and the payout to 2 additional weeks. On top of that, employees were all allowed to bump their hours up to 40 and use PTO to make up the difference. The third story is called, by all means, do it. In a previous life, before my world came apart about 5 months ago, I was the solo pastor of a medium-sized church in our largest southern city. One unhappy side effect of being a solo pastor is that when your phone rings, you answer it, even if you don't recognize the number since you have no idea how important the call may be. It could be a church member's grandkid whom you've never met, calling to tell you Miss Bessie has been diagnosed with some horrible disease. Or it could be a church member who just wants to talk your ear off for 2 hours. So earlier this evening, my phone rings, and since old habits die hard, I answered it. Hello? Hey, what are you up to? I want to be clear before I proceed that I don't recognize this lady's voice, but I just assumed that she was a former church member, member's kid or grandkid. Something. So I was cordial. Not much honestly. I actually just walked through the door with some food. How about you? I'm hanging out with my girl. Great. I'm sorry to have to ask this, but with whom am I speaking? I don't recognize your voice and I have no idea who that other girl is. Ladies and gentlemen, apparently that was the wrong thing to say. Darren, you know who this is. This is Jessie. Well, Miss Jessie, I hate to break this to you, but my name isn't Darren, and I don't know any woman named Jessie. I believe you've called the wrong number. No, I didn't. This isn't funny, Darren. What happened? Did you leave your ringer on again? Or are you worried your wife is gonna hear us talking? Ma'am, I'm very sorry, but now I know you've got the wrong number. I want to come over there and tell her all about us and how you have been screwing me behind her back for 2 years. I'm sick of this. Cue malicious compliance. You know what? That would be great. By all means, come to my house and wake my wife up and tell her all about our torrid affair. I'm leaving now. Engine cranks in the background. Okay, see you soon. 5 months ago, I discovered that my wife of 10 years started cheating on me 18 months into our marriage. She racked up a grand total of 16 affairs in a decade. Somewhere in my immediate area, a man's wife was just awakened by her husband's side piece banging on the front door. She deserves to know what kind of man she married. I'm just sorry I can't be a fly on the wall for the very special episode of the Jerry Springer Show that just started in her driveway. The next story is called No Water Outside the Break Room. I work as a fabricator for a company that's mainly known as a supplier of extrusion and sheet, so I fall outside of the new rules set in place. The warehouse staff, those who pick and pack orders at a fast pace and deal with customers, have just had a proverbial hammer brought down onto them. As you could imagine, handling heavy or large quantities of material while rushing around will make you hot and tired. Water and other drinks are the go-to to keep going through to your break. As such, management in their infinite wisdom has decreed that if you are seen with a drink on the floor, then you will receive an immediately written warning. All because there's the potential to somehow leave a watermark on the material. The advised action is to head to the break room to have a drink instead. As a side note, lots of small sips of water are better than a big gulp, especially when dehydrated. Safety first. So the guys are doing exactly that, walking off the floor several times a day, just to have a sip of water and then back to work. Have this occur among 7 people and the productivity has declined. One particular worker got pulled up about it and he simply said he was following the rules without compromising himself. Currently, the management is trying to work their way around it, but the fallout is a drop in productivity and a workforce that's safe behind the rules. The last story is called You Need to Change This Right Now. I teach in Arizona, home of one of the most underrated education systems in America. In my humble opinion, I think we really do great work here. It's the end of the marking period and my school has a US standard A, B, C, D or F grading system. I teach an algebra class to 8th graders, a year ahead in our parts, who are either smart enough or their parents want them to be smart enough. Parents are allowed an opt-in, it's the law. As we come to the end of the year and I'm posting grades, I'm reminded of this time last year when I got to serve up some compliance that was as delicious as it was malicious. I had a parent of one young buck actually come up to me in person while I was on after-school duty to discuss an issue he had with grading. For all the teachers out there, I am feeling the wave of FERPA violation coming over you. Yes, this is true, and I told him I can't discuss grades in a public setting. I didn't get to the word setting entirely before he interrupts me and says, "No, we are at school, this is my kid, I'm the one giving permission here, so let me ask you." I'm thinking to myself, great, I guess we are doing this while I'm directing traffic. I then realized the issue of safety, so I'm like, "Sir, I need to direct," and then he continues talking utter nonsense. I could only imagine I wasn't really listening at this point. Meanwhile, I'm looking down the road for more cars to wave down for pickup. He's just going and going. I hear a word or two like, "You said," and he's already turned and dead. And finally, as I get to a lull and look at him, he says to me, "And there's no way that you can fail my child," and put the comment, "Pleasure to have him class. You need to change this right now." Enter the light bolt of malicious compliance. The lull was about to pick back up when I say, "You make a good point. I don't know what I was thinking. I change it the second I'm done here." Which is actually possible because I always have my iPad on me pretty much at all times. The Karen of her dad walked off back to his parked car with his child visible and looking at me from the passenger side. And I actually heard him say, "That's what I thought," which, if you're unfamiliar, is the thing said to you when you've lost an argument that could have been a fight because you chickened out. Not responding to this is conceding defeat, usually. The second I get to a secure and private location, I go into the gradebooks and change the comment from "pleasure to have in class" to "respectful to teachers and staff," which is more than I can say for this kid's dad. Needless to say, he still got an F. Deserved. And yes, I made a change on the toilet. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. It really helps in the algorithm. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.